Okay, so my last post, my favorite one-shot, got a really positive response. As I explained there, the one-shot has turned into a 6 or 7 year campaign at this point. I think I'm gonna just sort of pick up where that one left off. Mainly because this will detail the place where we really decided where we were going to go with this game. And it fully set in that we were doing this as a true campaign. There will be some diversions into lore, world building, and mechanics. Not much religion this time, but I think I'll do that in the next post. Also, this has been insanely fun to write about. I haven't retread these memories in years, so I hope everything is relatively coherent. Thanks so much for reading. By the time the party has emerged from the underpass, we're about 5 sessions in, and we've figured a few things out. We're liking the gritty, low magic vibe. This is not a D&D classic fantasy world. Fairies exist. Ancient magic existed, with scraps of it still remaining. Other strangeness exists, but the rule is, it has to have a nice chunk of lore, and feel kind of reminiscent of the other myths and monsters we have in our own history. But we have goblins. That's pretty classic fantasy. They ain't no fairy goblins. We've described them a bunch as having their own shitty barbaric societies and stuff, and only a little bit of earthy sort of magic. We can fix this. Okay, retcon incoming. Goblins are feral pygmy dudes that look a little weird. They can probably interbreed with humans, but who would want to? Common wisdom is that they are descended from some sort of unfortunate mingling of fairies and humans countless years ago. Slap a bow on it, we're good. Any other ground rules for lore? Let's put the era somewhere rubber banding between about 500 AD and 1300 AD. Sorta Dark Ages, Iron Agey kinda feel. Ability to make true, high-quality steel is seen as a sort of magic all its own. But Alexander started with plate, so apparently that exists. That's fine, hand wave it, nobody cares. But true steel can be sort of magical metal. Magic weapons and armor will be non-existent, or at least rare as fuck. But you can get some sweet bonuses if you get a steel sword or whatever. Alexander's family two-hander is decent quality steel, gets a bonus to penetrate armor. Dark Ages need higher civilizations that fell, right? No problem, we can come up with 2. The mythic one, thousands of years ago, and the recent empire that's still around but on the decline. Mythic people need a weird alien name. The Thaumati. Story goes that they knew the language of creation, and they could speak or write words, and those words would shape the reality around them. But they grew too powerful, and God or gods sent dragons to wipe them all out. Is any of this true? Well, there are no dragons, but there are giant dragon-looking bones some places. There are no Thaumati, but there are some ancient alien ruins scattered throughout the world. There are some orders, like the one Borthel belongs to, that study ancient scripts in those ruins, and can occasionally bring forth magical effects. So sure, maybe it's true. Recent society is the Cassaline Empire, in the region of Kassala. Think a Greece-Rome hybrid. At one time, their borders stretched 3 or 4 times what they currently are. Most castles, outposts, etc. in the region the party is in are built on the bones of old Cassaline infrastructure. And the old Cassaline roads are the dopest of roads. Cassalines knew all sorts of shit. They could make concrete, siege engines, etc. There's a university there still, but most of that knowledge is lost to all but a handful of elite scholars. Okay, enough world building. What happens when they leave the underpass? They go to escort their new merc friends to their fort, Taram. These are the dudes they rescued. Led by Olivenko, the Cutter of Kamar, a Spitalian bravo that moved north and became a mercenary commander. And then lost his arm fighting goblins. Sad face. The mercs that had been left behind to defend the fort are in deep shit. A large force of bandits seem to have found an old functioning catapult. They are slowly battering down the wooden and stone fortifications. If they'd had a trebuchet, they'd have taken the place by now. Alexander and Yerevan lead a surprise raid on the bandit camp during dinner. Great success. Bandits scatter and Alexander captures their leader. Leader is a cowardly, amiable fellow named Robin. Alexander offers him a choice: execution for his crimes or atonement through service. Some choice. Robin chooses to join up with Alexander and Yerevan's team. They've sort of got visions of becoming a merc company themselves. But he's on half payment, and since he owes his life to Alexander, he has to pay half of his wages back to Alexander until he's repaid his debt. Shit wages and shit work beats a hanging, so Robin deals. Recruiting Robin seemed like a fun little side note at the time, but remember this. This is what Alexander does. The man is a recruiting machine. One day, he will recruit someone that traveled 1,000 miles solely so that they could challenge him to single combat and murder him. And that's not the most impressive peaceful solution he's ever done either. The mercs at Taram have suffered heavy losses and depleted stores. A few of them decide to travel with the party to the big trading hub up north, to recruit and restock. Destination is Yerevan, technically a city in Alexander's homeland of Rusk, but on the southernmost tip of that region. Along the way, they have a few more encounters. Meet up with a merchant who's had some losses and is hiding out in a lightly fortified roadside inn. Merchant is a sophisticated Castelline fellow, kind of like a Spitalian, but more refined and arrogant. He offers to pay them to take him to Yerevan too. He has a couple of guards and 2 assistants. Weird shit starts happening around now. Elena, the Tarathi priest who is headed to Yerevan to start a church, is poisoned. She survives, but only barely. Yerevan almost sees who did it, rolls a series of garbage checks. Guy gets away. A week later, a group of Ruskan mercenaries attack the caravan. 2 survive, and Alexander manages to recruit one of them, because of course he does. Ruskans say they had been hired to hit the caravan, especially to target Elena. But their boss was the one who struck the deal. And Alexander ran his sword through their boss's throat during the battle. Oops, no more intel. They eventually arrive at Yerevan. Elena and Alexander have gotten pretty close, so the party sticks around for a while. Weirdness continues. When ground is broken for the new church, they find that someone has marked some of these stones with alien runes. Borthul identifies them as Thalmati runes. Uh-oh. They play cat and mouse for a while, staking places out, asking around, and begin to suspect a cult of Thalmati worshippers in the area. Begin to suspect their new merchant pal, Giancarlo, may be in on it. One of Giancarlo's assistants, a fat one named Aguapo, asks to meet them in secret, in a private room in the inn. They go. What could go wrong? They enter the private room. Looks cozy. Fire in the fireplace. Aguapo sitting next to the fire. Bleeding everywhere. Aguapo is dying. Not just dying. Carved the fuck up. Someone cut him up to the point that at first our duo of heroes assume he's dead. He babbles a little bit, spilling some beans. Him and the other assistant poisoned Elena. They hate Tarathi adherents. They follow the old Castelline pantheon and hate how Tarathi missionaries are taking over everywhere. They were contacted by Thalmati cultists when they arrived in the city. Worked together a bit to fuck Elena over. Aguapo realized this was a dumb fucking idea. Too late. Aguapo dies. It sucks, but now the duo have a plan. Wait, is he dead? He's moving again. He's moving a lot. No, something inside him is moving a lot. Bone spurs start ripping through his flesh. He wasn't just carved up randomly. Someone carved a bunch of fucking Thalmati runes all over his body. A Thalmati-born demon bursts out of Aguapo's flesh like it's a cheap suit. The creature is bone and sinew, lean and stretched beyond the height and proportions of a human. Long claws, fanged maw, and fast as fuck. Picture a D&D Oceloth, if it helps you sleep at night. Alexander fractured his leg in the underpass, and it was almost on the mend by now. Thalmati demon grabs him by both legs and flips him into the wall. That's gotta hurt. The demon is too fucking fast. Darts around, wall climbs, hits, and runs. Shrugs off most hits. Yerevan gets desperate, gets in close with the creature. Takes some hits, but he manages to tangle it up in his cloak. Shoves it into the fireplace. It does not like that. The demon goes nuts, thrashes. Alexander barrels in and slams his family sword into the demon, rams it right through, and holds it there. The demon burns away. It dies screaming. The blade of Alexander's sword has burned black down to the hilt. That's not a good sign. No demon corpse to show people, so Yerevan does the next best thing and gathers up Aguapo's flesh in a sack. They go report this to the local lord. He's skeptical, but when Yerevan dumps his bag of Aguapo on the floor in front of him, he starts listening, and agrees to begin mobilizing his men. They go check on their merchant buddy. He's okay, but his other assistant has disappeared as well, and his warehouse is on fire. Yerevan rescues a few expensive goods from the wagons before it's all burned down. Prudence has caught the trail of a sketchy fellow that may have been involved in the burning. They catch him. Robin starts cutting off the guy's toes until he sings. The party rushes to a warehouse where the Thalmati cultists were last seen. Cultists consist of a bunch of mooks. One guy who actually knows a handful of Thalmati words, and Giancarlo's second assistant who is turning into another bone demon. Another big fight, despite the duo's tanks running close to empty by now. Yerevan came prepared this time. When the bone demon rushes him, he spits a mouthful of oil on the motherfucker and lights him up. Alexander takes a pounding from the cult leader, who spits words that shake Alexander in his bones. He manages to cut the leader down. His sword is acting weird. It feels hot in his hands, and flashes sometimes as he hits. The Lord's forces show up in time to high-five everyone for a job well done. Alexander talks to Elena and Borthul about the demon and his sword. They decide that it's been possessed by the first demon they killed. They work with a smith, heating and reworking the blade and inscribing runes into it. Borthul has them add some Thalmati-ish runes from his order. Elena adds scriptural verses of protection and blessings. The sword is no longer black, but the runes are. Borthul and Elena agree that the demon is, while not banished, at least bound, and the sword is probably safe to use. Alexander takes an interest in blacksmithing. At this point, some folks part ways. Elena stays to work on her church. Borthul fucks off to do old man wizard things. The party hears of tidings of war to the west. Reavers from Svarden have been massing in great numbers and attacking the coast. They decide to commit to this whole mercenary thing, and resolve that they'll go check it out. Just one thing. Every merc company needs a name, right? They bounce a few ideas around. People have been calling Alexander the Black Blade, but he really hates that, so that's out. He is happy with his steel sword, though. And Olivenko has given Yerevan his own sword, a custom-made true steel Bravos blade, with a blade much more slender and light than you could achieve with iron. Yeah, steel is pretty dope. And this was born Steelshod. That's a name that will attract attention. Who the fuck has so much steel that they could outfit an entire company with this stuff? Nobody. That's who. Well, nobody yet. Thank you for tuning in to Steelshod, a series by Mostly Rights, narrated by Tailforge. You can find every chapter in text format, as well as character sheets, setting information, maps, and rule documents on the Steelshod tabletop system in the link below. If you'd like to support the channel, you can pop down to the description and use the Patreon link for recurring donations, the PayPal.me link for one-time donations, the Teespring link for shirts with the incredibly cool background art by Nobody, or use the DriveThruRPG affiliate link the next time you're looking to try a new system. If you'd like to support the author, you can find Steelshod merch on the MostlyRights.com store, or donate to the Mostly Rights Patreon, which are both linked on reddit.com/r/mostlyrights down below.